Hello and welcome to the 5-Minute Message and myself, Reverend Steve Chriscole. Today's message is called Christ Our Redeeming Lord. Now then, there are some people who are very special people. They're prepared to sacrifice their lives to save other people. You've probably heard about them. It could be a policeman that dives into a river to save a drowning child, or a soldier who steps out under heavy enemy fire to save a colleague, one of his platoon. Then these acts of sacrifice, they're recognised, aren't they? By people give them medals. You end up with in Britain we have the highest honour for military personnel is the Victoria Cross. For civilians, it's the George Cross. In America, you have the Medal of Honor and so on like that. I think in France it's the Croix de Guerre, something like that. Now, these are people who care so much about their fellow citizens that they're willing to sacrifice their own lives so that other people might be saved. Now, I want you to bear that in mind when we're talking about Christ, because it should come as no great surprise to learn that that's exactly what Jesus of Nazareth did. He did it differently. Instead of getting a medal, unfortunately, they murdered him. So what he did throughout his whole ministry while he was with us on earth was all about sacrifice. His entire existence was centered around his love for other people. Now, he chose one very simple method to show the power of God and the compassion he had for people by healing people. I mean, he did other things too, but healing was a very large component. He healed countless numbers of people. When we read the Gospels, we only see the individual highlights, as it were, but in reality, he sometimes healed people spending many hours at a time doing it. People would seek him out, knowing that no matter what ailed them, he would heal them completely. So these are acts of great compassion, of love and sacrifice, because he has to give something of himself. Jesus continued and even escalated these kind of acts, which culminated in his very last miracle. And it was a public miracle, by the way, this time, a very public raising of a man from death. A man who had been in his tomb for 4 days. That was a friend of his called Lazarus. And this happened just before Jesus ended up going back into Jerusalem and then be subsequently arrested and crucified. So, as we get to the point of him being crucified, do you recall one of the last things that Jesus said while he was on the cross? He said to one of the criminals, he had one on each side, remember? He said this to them. He said in Luke 23, verse 42, it says, and he, meaning the thief, said unto Jesus, Lord, remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, Verily I say unto thee, today shalt thou be with me in paradise. So even as Jesus was close to death, he showed his compassion and love even to a convicted thief who was being crucified next to him. Right, so the Jews, they thought, job done, accomplished task. We've manipulated the Romans into doing our bidding. End of story. Thank you very much. We'll go. So Jesus was humiliated and he was given the death of a criminal and even executed between two thieves. So you would think that they might be justified in their thinking. But little did they realize that Jesus was fulfilling old scriptural prophecy. Now, I have an example of that. This is coming from the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament, Isaiah 53, verse 12. It reads as follows. It says, Therefore will I divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death. And he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. That tells us, doesn't it, something about, quite a bit about the task of the Messiah, the task that Jesus was performing. The sacrifice that he made, it wasn't just to rescue one criminal who was next to him from not from death, but to rescue him internally in terms of his spirit. It was a sacrifice to rescue the whole of humanity. You see, Jesus was the only man never to have sinned. When he died, he defeated Satan, because at that point, he then took upon himself the sins of the world, the sins of everyone. He took responsibility. He paid the price for everyone's sin, of the whole of mankind. He allowed himself to be humiliated. It wasn't something that was done to him. He allowed it to happen. He went into Jerusalem of his own accord. But he was humiliated and punished in our place. That's the important point to remember. In our place, instead of us having to go through that. Then after his resurrection, on the third day in the tomb, he went back to heaven after that. He spent some time, 40 days or so, talking to people, eating with people, conversing and so on. And then he went back to be with the Father. Now, why did he do that? He did it because he wanted our prayers, so that our prayers could reach God. And that's thanks to Jesus. We're saved from the second death. That's the death where we're thrown into hell in perpetuity, thanks to Jesus. We have the opportunity of a new life, thanks to Jesus. So he deserves not just a medal for what he did. He deserves our thanks, he deserves our praise, and he deserves our worship. Okay, that's the end of today's message. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you soon again, very soon. God bless. Bye for now.